Good afternoon, and welcome to everyone who's joined us today. Before we get started, my name is Pete Rafel. I'm the Communications Director for Georgetown Climate Center. I just want to share a couple of quick logistical details. First of all, this webinar is being recorded, and we'll make the recording available afterwards, so don't feel that you have to record it yourself. Second, when we get to questions and answers, we'll be using the raise hand feature and unmute you to ask your question out loud. And alternatively, you can use the question feature to submit written questions, but we'll be taking as many live questions as we can, and let us know if you have technical issues. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Vicki Arroyo, the Executive Director of the Georgetown Climate Center, to kick us off.
Thank you so much. As Pete said, I'm Vicki Arroyo. I'm Executive Director of the Georgetown Climate Center at Georgetown Law, and we have had the privilege of facilitating the work of the Transportation and Climate Initiative, a unique partnership among Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states and the District of Columbia, working to improve transportation, develop the clean energy economy, and reduce carbon emissions from the transportation sector since 2010. In more recent years, TCI jurisdictions have worked together on regional policy approaches. Today's announcement is a historic milestone following years of consultation, extensive public engagement since 2017, and technical analysis. We're here to share some exciting news today. I'm pleased to introduce four of the leaders who've been instrumental in making TCI reach this milestone. Kathleen Theoharides, Secretary of the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. Secretary Theoharides also is the chair of the TCI leadership team. Katie Dykes, Commissioner of Connecticut's Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. Janet Coit, Director of Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management. And Jeff Marudian, Director of the District of Columbia's Department of Transportation. They'll share details of today's announcements, and then we'll take your questions. Secretary Theoharides.
Thank you, Vicki, and good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. We are so excited today to announce what we believe is the most significant step states have taken together to address climate change and public health in many years. Today, Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker, Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont, Rhode Island Governor Gina Raimondo, and Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser signed a memorandum of understanding committing to a groundbreaking multi-state program that will cap and reduce emissions from transportation by 26% by 2032. The Bipartisan Transportation and Climate Initiative Program, or TCIP, will allow participating jurisdictions to invest in equitable, cleaner transportation options and create significant new economic opportunities while substantially improving public health across all jurisdictions. Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and DC are committing to bold action to achieve our ambitious emission reduction targets while positioning the jurisdictions and the region to grow the clean transportation economy. Here in Massachusetts, we know that climate change is real, and we believe that responsible climate action strengthens our economy, protects our communities and residents, and improves public health. We know that the impacts we're seeing here in Massachusetts on our coasts, to our fisheries, to our family farms and our communities are not political, they're real and they are urgent. We know that local air pollution that disproportionately affects communities of color and low-income communities also makes COVID-19 outcomes worse. Earlier this year, Governor Baker committed the Commonwealth to achieving net zero emissions by 2050. A goal consistent with what the science says is needed to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. We've been working on a roadmap to determine how to most cost-effectively and equitably achieve those emission reductions. And one of the important things we've learned from this analysis is that the TCIP is critical to achieving our decarbonization goals. Together, the states of Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island account for 73% of emissions in New England. And through the leadership of Washington, D.C., the reach of this effort has extended down the coast. I want to underscore that while our 4 jurisdictions are the first to make this landmark commitment and kickstart the program, we expect our numbers to grow significantly. In conjunction with the signing of this MOU, 8 other Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, and with the inclusion of North Carolina for the first time, Southeast jurisdictions have released a joint statement committing to continued collaboration on the development of the TCIP. This group will also work to identify additional strategies to reduce air pollution, create healthier communities, and invest in cleaner, more equitable transportation systems. We know the power of the region and the important role we play collectively. Together, the 13 jurisdictions cover more than 25% of the US population, 60 million vehicles, and 14% of the nation's greenhouse gas emissions. Transportation and climate change transcend state borders, and that's why we are tackling these challenges together. In a year when attention has rightfully been focused elsewhere, I want to thank my state and city colleagues for their commitment to continue shaping this program that will greatly benefit our shared climate, public health, and clean transportation goals, and to the Georgetown Climate Center under Vicky Arroyo's leadership for all of the work they've done to support this initiative. While the jurisdictions signing this MOU today are taking a critical first step to launch this program, our collaboration across the region continues. On behalf of Governor Baker and the Commonwealth, we are proud of the achievement this historic agreement represents and look forward to the continued collaboration, partnership, and dialogue with jurisdictions and stakeholders across the region. Now I'd like to introduce Commissioner Katie Dykes from Connecticut's Department of Energy and Environmental Protection to share some of the details of the program and some features that make this a truly groundbreaking program.
Great, thank you so much, Katie. It's great to be with everyone today for this historic announcement. I'm really just so excited about what this shows and demonstrates as far as Governor Lamont's climate leadership, his commitment to helping us reduce emissions from our largest source sector, transportation, and his continuing commitment to regional approaches that we know can be so impactful and help promote our economic competitiveness. I want to speak a little bit about how TCIP works. So the TCIP program is a cap and invest program that will require large gasoline and diesel fuel suppliers to purchase allowances for the pollution that's caused by the combustion of fuels that they sell in our region. The program works by setting a cap upstream on fuels. Because fuel distributors operate in a competitive marketplace with a growing diversity of alternative fuels such as hydrogen and electricity, the price signal will spur innovation, including for regulated entities to reduce the carbon content of the fuels that they sell. Because gasoline and diesel prices vary widely over time due to a variety of global factors, it's difficult to predict the exact or the precise implications for consumers. Should fuel suppliers pass along costs, modeling estimates show a potential increase of around 5 cents per gallon. This is far less than the regular fluctuations that consumers see in retail fuel prices. The total number of emission allowances will decline each year, resulting in less transportation pollution. The proceeds, nearly $300 million for signatory jurisdictions netted in the first year, will be invested in low carbon transportation projects that help both urban and rural residents. Each participating jurisdiction will independently decide how to invest program proceeds in consultation with their citizens and other policymakers. We will be working with communities and businesses to make sure that those investments deliver what people need. But examples could include improving and expanding public transportation, zero emission buses, cars, and trucks, electric vehicle charging infrastructure, development of interstate electric vehicle charging corridors, improving high-speed wireless internet in rural and low-income areas to allow for teleworking, repairing existing roads and bridges, and providing safer bike lanes and sidewalks. I'm especially excited to spotlight some of the equity commitments that are part of our announcement today, will be part of this program, and really reflect the extensive dialogue that we've had in these last few months around the development of this program. Cap and invest is a tested, proven approach that guarantees pollution reductions while making transformative investments. At the same time, the TCI program incorporates some features that set it apart from other similar programs. The MOU that's signed today also includes a commitment to dedicate a minimum of 35% of each state's proceeds to ensure that underserved and overburdened communities that experience disproportionately high levels of pollution benefit equitably from clean transportation projects and programs. So let me just walk you through the numbers. In the first year alone, the TCI program would result in annual proceeds of nearly $276 million for the 4 participating jurisdictions: Connecticut, DC, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. By 2032, as our cap declines, annual proceeds would exceed $366 million. The TCI program would raise over $3.2 billion in cumulative proceeds for Connecticut, DC, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island between 2023 and 2032. In the first year alone, with that commitment to a minimum of 35% expenditure in overburdened communities, the TCIP program would result in nearly $100 million in annual minimum investments for overburdened and underserved communities in Connecticut, DC, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. By 2032, the TCIP would result in nearly $130 million in annual minimum investments for those communities. The TCIP would result in over $1.1 billion of cumulative minimum investments for overburdened and underserved communities in Connecticut, DC, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island between 2023 and 2032. If all of the 13 jurisdictions implement the program over time, by 2032, the TCIP could result in $700 million in annual minimum investments for overburdened and underserved communities. I want to emphasize that 35% is a minimum commitment. There's nothing preventing jurisdictions from going further. And this could be higher based on the proportion of underserved and overburdened communities in a given jurisdiction. To make sure those investments deliver on the equity and environmental justice goals of the program, each jurisdiction will designate an advisory body in their state to identify underserved and overburdened communities, provide guidance for investments, and define goals and metrics for measuring progress. A majority of the members of each advisory body will be people from or representing underserved and overburdened communities. Each signatory jurisdiction will work with communities and with its equity advisory body to assess the equity impacts of the program on an ongoing basis, including by monitoring air quality in communities overburdened by air pollution to ensure the effectiveness of policies and investments, and will ensure transparency by annually reviewing and reporting on program progress. Our jurisdictions also commit to continue to work individually and together, along with a broader group of TCI states, on additional policies that reduce pollution from transportation and advance our shared goals of equity and environmental justice. Now I'm pleased to introduce my terrific colleague, Janet Coit, the director of the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management, to talk about the public health benefits we expect from this program.
Thank you, Katie. And thank you, Katie Theoharides and Vicki Arroyo. On behalf of Governor Gina Raimondo, I'm so proud to be part of the launch of this historic bipartisan effort, together with Massachusetts, Connecticut, and DC. It's critical that we take bold action at the municipal level, the state level, and the regional level. And as with the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, we expect that more states will join this program in the months and years ahead. TCI gives us the opportunity to work with other states and stakeholders to develop and implement a detailed roadmap to cut pollution, improve public health, and invest in significant transportation and community improvements. Here in Rhode Island, we care a lot about air quality and aim to cut harmful air pollution. We want to expand cleaner public transit options. We want to reduce traffic congestion. And we want to invest in our mobility strategies and transportation networks so that, among other things, we can assure that essential workers can get to work safely and on time. And TCI will help us deliver on all of those. This program comes at a time when we feel the impacts of climate change in Rhode Island. We're experiencing hotter weather, which leads to public health impacts, warmer waters, sea level rise, intense storms. So we need to do something, and we need to do something in the transportation sector where we have the majority of our emissions. 38% of our emissions in Rhode Island of greenhouse gases are from the transportation sector. And we all know that those emissions exacerbate public health conditions. Exposure to air pollution weakens people who have lung and heart ailments, causes asthma attacks, and increases the risk of stroke and other serious health conditions. And that's been very on our minds this year. Prolonged exposure to air pollution can make it more difficult to recover from diseases and make people more vulnerable to diseases like COVID-19. We've seen a disparate impact of COVID-19 in communities of color in Rhode Island and across the nation. And these are the communities that are most impacted by mobile source emissions. In Rhode Island, we have a higher rate of asthma than in the rest of the nation. Over 16% of our adults and over 14% of children are diagnosed with asthma during their lifetime in Rhode Island. And that exceeds the national rates of 14.5% for adults and 11.4% for children. And that's according to the CDC statistics. And we know on hotter days, we have more asthma attacks, and climate change is leading to that warmer weather. So the health and safety benefits that we'll realize through this program are really a significant part of the achievements of TCI. In 2032, the TCIP would result in health benefits of up to $200 million and safety benefits of $600 million in that year, a combined total of $260 million. These estimates are based on both an independent study that was led by Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health and also leading research by the Transportation Equity, Climate, and Health Project, TREC. These benefits come in the form of fewer deaths relating to improved air quality, relating to increased physical activity, and to avoided deaths and injuries from improved safety and reduced hospital visits for asthma and respiratory diseases. If the entire group of states participates, we'll see over $3 billion in health and safety benefits. And I want to underscore that those estimated health benefits for the region are substantially larger than the estimated proceeds that will be derived. And that comes from the TREC study, where they found the health benefits to be across all communities, urban, suburban, and rural. Cutting pollution and investing in transportation alternatives will result in healthier communities, and in particular, those who've suffered the most from transportation-related pollution. The potential transformative investments in participating jurisdictions, we think, will be a game changer here for healthier communities, for addressing equity issues, and for doing our part on climate change. My governor has characterized TCIP as investing in Rhode Islanders. And we are so delighted to be part of launching this program and have been working very hard with other states and expect them to join on. Right now, once we get launched and we see a $20 million estimated influx of revenue to Rhode Island each year and growing as the cap is reduced, we need that shot in the arm to our economy. Those proceeds from the sale of allowances will result in over $7 million being invested in frontline communities and will give us an additional $88 million for those communities over the 2023 to 2032 program. These are funds that we need and are excited to use on increased mobility. It's important to note that from its inception, I've been working with my Department of Transportation and with our Public Transit Authority, and in all of the jurisdictions, our departments of transportation have been part of designing this program. So I'm pleased to introduce my colleague from the District of Columbia, the director of the Department of Transportation there, Jeff Marudian, who's going to talk further about some of the economic benefits. Jeff.
Great. Thank you, Janet, very much. Mayor Muriel Bowser's vision for the District of Columbia is to be the healthiest, greenest, and most livable city for all of our residents. And with her leadership, we have ambitious goals for mobility, equity, and climate. And this program is an opportunity to accelerate all three of those together. DC has a unique transportation need, especially when it comes to transit. And we have seen during the pandemic just how critical transit services are. Every one of us is dependent on the millions of people in our communities who rely on transit to provide healthcare, food, and other critical services. The difficult cuts being made in many transit systems show us how important issues of transportation and equity are to our communities across the region. TCI presents an opportunity to be a part of a long-term solution to providing safe, affordable, and equitable transit access for our region. Supporting alternatives to single occupancy vehicles, promoting active transportation, investing in more climate resilient infrastructure, expanding access to broadband, and improving the reliability of transit are just some of the potential investments that will create jobs, spur economic activity, and reduce harmful pollution, all while fighting climate change. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here on behalf of our mayor. I, along with my colleague Tommy Wells, our Director of Energy and the Environment, are pleased to be able to work alongside all of the partners on this very important initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Meridian. We're thrilled to have you with us. Before I close out today's event, I'd like to recognize the commitment, dedication, and partnership of all our state and city colleagues, especially the three joining me today from Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Washington, D.C., and to our colleagues at the Georgetown Climate Center who have made this process possible. Through TCI, we can ensure sustained investment in transportation to give people better, more affordable transportation choices while cutting the pollution that contributes to global warming and makes people more vulnerable to disease. The ongoing COVID-19 crisis has rightly placed a spotlight on the importance of addressing not just greenhouse gas emissions from transportation, but also air pollution, particularly in heavily impacted environmental justice communities. The equity commitments built into this program from the start means communities that have borne the greatest burdens will receive real benefit and have a meaningful role in shaping the program, investment decisions, and complementary policies as we move forward. Broad support from both business and environmental stakeholders demonstrates the power of the investments that TCIP can unlock for our jurisdiction and residents, while effectively capping the largest sector of emissions in the region. We know from experience that similar programs, like the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, have been powerful, successful catalysts for reducing emissions, investing in communities, and growing robust economies. And we know that these programs have grown over time. The coming decade is pivotal for climate action. The commitments from Governor Baker, Lamont, and Raimondo, and Mayor Bowser, and the clear support of the rest of the region moving forward is an important step to address the climate crisis and promote equitable transportation options. Today's announcement is the result of years of work and engagement, but it is not the end. This marks the beginning of the next steps in the process, and we are looking forward to a new phase of intensive engagement with people across all of our states. We'll be moving quickly to establish the equity advisory bodies in our respective jurisdictions and to engage with the other states to complete a draft model rule for public input early next year. With the growth of the Transportation and Climate Initiative to include the Southeast, we are excited about the growing momentum, and we look forward to other states joining the initial jurisdictions in implementing the TCIP program. I'll now hand it over to our colleagues at Georgetown Climate Center to facilitate any questions you have.
Thank you. This is Pete Rayful again. I see some of you have submitted questions in writing. I would just ask that you please use the hand raise function, and we'll call on people as expeditiously as we can. And I would start with the first question is from Marie French at Politico. I'm going to unmute you, Marie, and you can ask your question.
Hey, can you all hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Yeah, just a couple clarifying questions to start off. North Carolina is the state joining, and then which jurisdiction that was originally part of the TCI discussions dropped out of this accompanying statement that we expect today? And then I think it was Secretary Theoharis who said something about these four jurisdictions represent 73% of the emissions in New England. I'm just not sure where that number comes from, or if you could clarify that. Thanks.
So I'll start with a New England number. So Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Massachusetts make up 73% of total emissions from the New England region. They also make up 76% of vehicles and 70 to 80% of GDP in New England. So a significant part of the region in a place where our economies, transportation systems, and climate impacts are all tightly linked. So that's where those statistics come from. The signatories, I believe that will be released shortly. Vicki, is there anything you'd like us to say now before that statement is live?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, so the signatories on the statement of support are North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, New York, Vermont. Am I forgetting anyone? And then, of course, Massachusetts, DC, Rhode Island, and Connecticut.
And New Jersey, I don't know.
And New Jersey.
And that information we hope to have all up on the website by 1 p.m., which was originally the time that we thought this webinar would be, as you know.
Great.
Marie, did that get to your questions? I know you had one. I don't remember the first one.
I was just clarifying that it was North Carolina. And I guess just, can you speak a little bit more to, why only 4 states have decided to sign on at this juncture, and what gives you hope that these additional states will continue to engage and hopefully sign on in the future?
So the fact that this is a historic and first in the nation agreement, it's multiple bipartisan jurisdictions joining together to take action to significantly reduce harmful emissions, protect public health in our communities, and invest in a cleaner and more equitable transportation system is building real momentum behind this program. And by working regionally together in this part of the country where we share tightly connected economies and transportation systems, the TCIP provides this incredible opportunity to accomplish our state and regional climate goals while we ensure continued economic growth and recover from COVID-19 pandemic. I mentioned the numbers, so I won't say them again, but this is a significant portion of the New England region in terms of emissions, and we know we'll have a bigger impact together than we ever would alone. And these 4 jurisdictions will be raising and able to invest $3.2 billion by 2032 in our economies, including over $1 billion for underserved and overburdened communities, and at the same time, reducing our state's emissions by 26% over the next decade. And I think the expansion you're seeing in the program with the arrival of North Carolina committing to this process and moving forward with all of us shows real promise for continuing to build as we move forward. During our conversations, we've retained representative states from New England, the tri-state area, the Mid-Atlantic, and now the Southeast. And this is a strong group moving forward in a committed way. And we believe the future is bright and that if you build it, they will come. But I would turn it to my other state colleagues as well, who have been, just so involved in this process and moving us forward.
I'll say that, Governor Lamont, and working together with Governor Baker and Governor Raimondo and Mayor Bowser, he's really committed to working together on a regional basis to advance climate solutions. We know that action is urgently needed and investment is urgently needed for us to meet the ambitious targets that our state of Connecticut has set for reducing carbon pollution. And we know that all of the states that we've been in dialogue with over these past months on the design of this program share similarly ambitious targets. I'm confident that over time, as our 4 jurisdictions are moving forward with the implementation of the program, the other states are also committed to continue in the discussions and dialogue with us as we further refine the design of this program, which I know will better facilitate broader participation over time. I think this is, I'm confident that we will see more jurisdictions joining with us, in part because past is prologue here. We've seen that with other successful multi-state programs like RGGI with a core group of states initiating the program and quickly many others joining and continuing to join that program even to this date. So I'm excited that Connecticut we were a charter member of RGGI. We're going to be a charter member of TCIP because we know that these solutions work. Working on a multi-state basis is the most effective way that we can accomplish carbon pollution reduction. This program will deliver on the 26% emission reduction from our transportation sector here in Connecticut. That will be true of the other jurisdictions that move forward with us on implementation. The program has the integrity and the effectiveness to work at this size, and it will work just as effectively as we expand and grow this program into the future.
I'll just add very quickly to amplify that from the Governor Raimondo's perspective. Rhode Island joined RGGI in 2007, even though it was launched by other states in 2005. And subsequently Maryland joined, and then we've had New Jersey in and out, and Virginia. So this has so many benefits and is proven to be an effective approach that she thinks other governors will join because the benefits that derive from the program. And similar to RGGI, that is something that will expand after it's launched.
Are we ready for our next question? Our next question will come from Tom Rusi at ABC7 in Washington, D.C.
Hi, this question is for Jeff Marudian. The first question is DC specific. The others probably apply to everybody. My first question, the DC specific one is this something the mayor can just do unilaterally? Does she have to get city council for approval? And then my broader question is, what exactly are these companies paying for? Is it the right to sell gas in DC? Because I guess my question is, like, what if a company says, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to pay for an auction to, for the right to quote pollute or whatever. Did they then lose the right to sell gas in DC? What does it cost me if I'm a company and I don't buy one of these credits at auction?
Thanks for that question, Tom. To answer the first part, the Clean Energy DC Act authorizes the mayor to join a regional effort such as this to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And so we will work closely with the council to move forward with this program as they have already authorized our participation in it. And I'll defer to my colleagues to answer your second question, as it's not just specific to the district, but as a part of the entire program.
So the credits are required to cover the carbon content of on-road diesel and gasoline fuels. And so the suppliers are required to obtain enough credits to cover that carbon content of the fuels that they deliver into a region. What this means is that fuel suppliers can take measures to develop cleaner fuel blends and reduce the carbon content. And the proceeds from the sale of these credits are reinvested back into the jurisdictions that are selling the credits through auction to ensure that there are better, cleaner, more public health friendly transportation options for people throughout the state or jurisdiction.
If you can still hear me, I'm a little confused on that though. When you say that what they're auctioning for the carbon that they bring in, is that based on the cars that come into a jurisdiction or the gas they sell in a jurisdiction? And what happens if I'm a company and I refuse to participate? How do you legally force them to do this?
I might call on my Georgetown colleagues to get into more of the details here, but the credits are to cover the fuel delivered into a region and the carbon content of that fuel.
Yeah, and I'll just say, so our states will be developing regulations that will cover and assign this compliance requirement to those fuel suppliers. The program has a lot of flexibility built into it to make compliance really convenient and easy for suppliers by having multi-year compliance periods. The states as part of and jurisdictions as part of this regulatory component of the program will also be responsible for ensuring enforcement associated with the program. But again, the design of this program is intended to provide for a lot of flexibility for fuel suppliers, for compliance, and help them to compete and drive innovation to make the compliance cost as low as possible.
It's important to know we will be starting with a reporting only year where we'll be able to look at how the system works, make sure we're getting those reporting requirements nailed down, and also auction off some of the credits on the market so companies can begin getting those credits at auction in a first year without a compliance obligation. Sorry, Jeff. Did I cut you off there?
Oh no, it was me.
Okay.
It was Tom again. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So just to be 100% clear, you're basically saying I need to participate if I'm a company in order to have the right to deliver fuel into your jurisdiction and I guess to sell it as well in the jurisdiction.
You need to have the allowances to cover the carbon content in the fuel when the program is up and running. But because of the time between now and 2023, more conversations with the regulated entities will be moving forward, including a very public process to generate a model rule, and then individual regulations and/or legislation if needed in these various jurisdictions. So all those details aren't worked out at this stage. This is a more kind of political high-level agreement on the MOU with some supporting materials. The next step will be a model rule. Then not just these 4 jurisdictions, but all of them that have been at the TCI table will help inform, and then individual states, or in the case of the district, will work with policymakers in their jurisdictions to move forward. But it is a regulatory program that caps the emissions at that level. And so you will have to have credits if you're selling into the district in this case.
Thank you.
Let's go to the next question. The next question is from Dawn Reeves at Inside EPA. Dawn, I don't think we can hear you yet.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, thanks much for doing this. I'm just wondering if anybody can speak to why the states that had been participating, looking to sign the MOU up to now, decided not to do so at this point.
So what I would say on this is that every state has a different regulatory and legal context, but that this initial sign-on to the Memorandum of Understanding is the opening of a window for states and jurisdictions to join us in this program. This is the kickoff, this is the launch, but with a strong commitment from the rest of the region signing on to continue working with us and developing the model rule and the infrastructure and the equity pieces of this program. We will have them at the table, and they are continuing to work in good faith towards joining the program.
I'd like just to add that we're here promoting something that we think is a great solution to the transportation sector and has all these benefits. The other states are signing on to a supportive memorandum that you'll also receive with their state seal and are help design this program with the agreement with us that it's pretty much the best game in town when it comes to helping us meet ambitious climate change goals and cleaning up our transportation sector and improving mobility. So they have to speak for themselves, but I think what you'll find is very supportive statements and with a lot of excitement around potentially joining this program.
Just to clarify, so am I still on? The states that the 3 states and DC are formally committing to do something, and the other states are still supportive of it, but at this point, by not signing the MOU, they are not actually committing to anything. Is that the difference?
The other states have committed to staying at the TCI table with us to help us draft the model rule that will inform the program, to help us establish the regional entity and the other pieces of the program that will help it succeed, to continue stakeholdering in their jurisdictions, particularly with environmental justice and equity communities, and to continue to work with us to design a program that works for the region. And so there is a commitment from those states as well, but the 3 states and DC who signed on to the MOU have committed to launching the program in 2022 with a reporting only year, and then in 2023 as a full program. And we expect in the next months and years to add many of the states who have committed to continuing their work with us to the signatories on the MOU.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Don, if you think about it, like in the international sphere, where, you know, the Paris Agreement is open for signature, and these are the first round of jurisdictions that are signing, you know, that's the frame, and that's, you know, how we're seeing it and how the states on the statement are viewing it, with more engagement early in the year and beyond.
Yeah, that's a great point, Vicki. And I would note too that when the U.S. Climate Alliance launched after President Trump took the country out of the Paris Agreement, it started with 6 or 7 states. It's now up to 26. And so we see these things build on the momentum they create, and in this case, the investments that will be realized in our communities.
And speaking of the Paris Agreement, one of the first, as we all know, the Biden-Harris administration is committed to rejoining that, and we need efforts like this to happen if we're going to make headway in the next few years to meet those goals.
Right, we ready for the next question? The next question is from Barbara Moran at WBUR Boston.
Hi, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Okay. So I have a question about gas prices as well as revenues for Massachusetts specifically. The number I think you guys quoted was a probably 5-cent gas hike. And I've heard numbers up to 38 cents a gallon for the first year of implementation. So I'm wondering where you get this 5-cent number. And then I also had heard an estimate that Massachusetts could get about $500 million in new revenue from this, which I'm guessing is less, given that there's only 4 or 3 states and DC signing on. So what's the current estimate of new revenues for Massachusetts out of this agreement?
So, you know, just to be really clear, the TCIP program will cap pollution and accelerate this investment. And if fuel suppliers choose to pass their compliance cost directly through to consumers, and again, they have ways to avoid them by cleaning their blends, fluctuation in fuel prices are projected to be well within the range of what the region has historically experienced. So a few cents, we're projecting about 5 cents a gallon, or about the price difference between 2 gas stations on the same street. And there are protections built into the program and what we've agreed to in terms of ensuring that prices won't raise above sort of a 5 to 9 cents range. So some of the price projections that were in studies as recently as this year did not include those price protection that have been a key component of programs like the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative and are absolutely a critical component of this program. Massachusetts is set to realize revenue of about $130 million a year. And that is based on where we are setting the initial cap. The region as a whole is set to receive about $3.2 billion for the 4 jurisdictions by 2032, including $1 billion for underserved and overburdened communities at that 35% minimum level of commitment in environmental justice and underserved communities.
And if I could add, The impact of this program in terms of the amount of emission reductions and the expected investment that will result is not affected by the number of states or jurisdictions that are participating.
Can I just ask a quick follow-up? Do you have what is the initial cap? Do you have that set out, or is that not been figured out yet?
26% by 2032.
Sorry, you cut out for a second. You said 26.
26.
Yeah, the cap's a 30%
Sorry,
reduction.
Janet.
A 30% reduction over 9 years. It's projected to achieve a reduction in emissions of 26%. And as Katie Dykes said, it's right-sized to however many jurisdictions are participating. So it's based on the transportation emissions for those participating jurisdictions. So that what we achieve in the way of reductions and proceeds in the jurisdictions participating will be the same depending if more states join, because the cap will include their emissions.
And that point's critical because all of us here today have in-state climate emission targets that we're working towards. Massachusetts just set net zero. We can't get there without a program like this reducing transportation sector emissions. And as Katie and Janet both alluded to, said, the number of states participating does not affect the outcomes we see in each of our jurisdictions.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask one more just quick follow-up, and then I'm done. So a number of environmental justice groups had called for 100% of the revenues to go toward environmental justice communities, given that they're already bearing the brunt of all this air pollution. I know you said, I think 35%. So how would you respond to these groups who are asking for 100%?
I would start, and Katie, I know you can expand on this, and Janet as well. 35% is a minimum commitment to investments in environmental justice, overburdened and underserved communities. And we are setting up a process with equity advisory boards that will help determine how states should best make those investments. Something that's really important to us in the Commonwealth, and I know in other jurisdictions, is ensuring that we are monitoring the outcomes from this program through measures like increased air monitoring stations in frontline communities so that we can see the results of a program like this on the ground. We are also doing open and transparent review processes as a body to ensure that the investments we're making are being successful in that manner. And then states, and this includes the entire TCI region, are working on complementary policies that we can deploy together to continue to work to reduce pollution in environmental justice communities. And so this is something that is going to be ongoing, but the 35% is a minimum commitment to what those investments would be in overburdened and underserved communities.
Great, thank you.
If I could just say one thing, it's not only minimum for all the states and the district, but also if the population that is overburdened by pollution or currently underserved is estimated at more than that, there's some language, as you'll see in the MOU itself, that suggests that that could change on the high end. So it won't go less than that. It actually might be more as a baseline, just based on if the population in that state or the district would be more than 35% to start with. And I will say that that number is very similar to what you see in the CLCPA program in New York and in the California legislation that's been out there for some time to guarantee investments in environmental.
I think that's a very important point, Vicki, and just the nature of this as being opening a window for not only continued signatory, but for continued discussion as we work on the model rule and on where the investments will go. And so we expect to continue a robust dialogue with all stakeholders, and particularly environmental justice communities who want to have more conversations on these investments and how they can best be used.
If anything, I would say this program, it enables us to have a dialogue around real revenues and real benefits, one that we're eager to have. And this is an exciting day, but in Rhode Island, we need to work with our legislature to enact this, and that will be a big part of those conversations going forward, the dialogue with stakeholders.
And importantly, as you'll see from the broader statement, there's also a commitment there to engage on emissions reductions and with overburdened and underserved communities. So that work will move forward in this reporting year.
So I'm noting that we're at the top of the hour here. There are some remaining questions in the queue. We will follow up with everyone on this. Before we sign off, keep an eye on the the Transportation and Climate Initiative website, transportationandclimate.org. The press release about this announcement is live there now. And you'll receive that by email as well shortly, as well as supporting materials with additional information about the agreement that's been announced today with that window opening with the first 4 jurisdictions. Secretary Theoharides or any of our other speakers, do you want to say anything before we sign off?
No, I'd just like to thank everyone for attending today, and to all of our states and to our Georgetown colleagues for making this historic moment possible. Thank you, and we look forward to our continued work to implement the program, to expand the coalition, and to work with people across the region to build a really strong and powerful climate game changer and transportation investment program.
Yeah, and I'd like to just say, after so much divisiveness, it's really great to see a bipartisan regional effort leading on climate change. So I'm excited to be part of it, and I know the governor is as well.
Thank you all very much.